The Canadian oil sands were discovered more than 200 years ago. The emergence and commercialization of the automobile stimulated early interest in developing Alberta's oil sand deposits. Commercial production of oil began in 1967 with the opening of the Great Canadian Oil Sands Plant in Fort McMurray. Alberta's oil reserves have approximately 168 billion barrels. It is the third largest in the world, behind Venezuela and Saudi Arabia. Oil sands, also known as tar sands, refers to the mixture of sands, clay, water, and extra heavy crude oil known as bitumen. Bitumen is a sticky, black, and highly viscous liquid or semi-solid form of petroleum. Its contents vary from 1 to 18% of oil. Because bitumen is highly viscous, it does not flow unless it is heated or mixed with lighter hydrocarbons. Conventional drilling techniques cannot be used on bitumen because it is too viscous to flow. Bitumen can be extracted using two methods: steam-assisted gravity drainage production or open-pit mining. Steam-assisted gravity drainage is currently the most widely used method. It requires the drilling of two horizontal wells, one slightly higher than the other. Steam is injected continuously into the top well, and as the temperature rises, the bitumen becomes more fluid and flows to the lower well. The bitumen is then pumped to the surface. Open-pit mining uses large shovels to scoop the oil sand into trucks, which transports it to the crushers, where the large clumps of sand are processed. After crushing, the hot water is added so it can be pumped to the extraction plant, where more hot water is added to further separate the components. Pipelines then transport the oil from the fields all the way to refineries and petrochemical plants. Over 100,000 kilometers of pipeline move oil within provinces and across provincial and international boundaries. Alberta's oil sands industry employed 20,000 workers in 2016. That number is projected to grow to more than 35,000 by 2021. Local First Nations communities benefit from the jobs created, with 1,600 workers permanently employed in the industry. The oil sands have made Canada the #1 foreign supplier of oil to the U.S., creating a close economic partnership shared by the two countries. Also, the oil sands have spurred massive economic growth in Alberta. Despite the recent economic downturn, the Alberta oil sands continue to generate huge profits and provide thousands of jobs. As the rate and scale of oil sands development increases, concerns about the associated environmental impacts have grown. In situ development creates a significant disturbance to the boreal forest. These disturbances, from seismic and drill hole exploration, production well pads, roads and pipelines, can negatively impact wildlife. More than any other environmental issue, the provincial government is increasingly being criticized for its approach to climate change. Much of Canada's energy production and consumption is fossil fuel based. Therefore, greenhouse gas emissions are high. The oil sands are the single largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions growth in Canada. In fact, greenhouse gas emissions from oil sands operations are about 5 times greater than those from conventional crude oil production. Along with greenhouse gases, other pollutants are released into the air during oil sands operations. The extraction of bitumen from oil sands requires an extremely large amount of water, and thus water use is a concern when looking at oil sands extraction. Water used in the oil sands can be recycled, but only small amounts of this water are returned to the natural cycle. Water for oil sands mining is pumped from the Athabasca River, a river that fluctuates seasonally as well as year to year. Withdrawing water during natural low flow periods has the potential to harm aquatic life in the river. This water cannot be returned to the river system because it becomes toxic in the extraction process and must be retained in tailings ponds. Tailings ponds are settling ponds that contain the waste byproduct of oil sands extraction and upgrading. The water in these ponds includes acids, unrecovered hydrocarbons, and trace metals, which are toxic to aquatic organisms and mammals. Reclamation is the attempt to return old surface mines or more frequently tailings ponds to its natural state. The chemicals in the tailings make this process difficult. Reclamation of boreal forest lands after development is a challenge, and the boreal ecosystem will never fully be restored.
You can't make a choice between what's good for the environment and what's good for the economy. We can't shut down the oil sands tomorrow. We need to phase them out. We need to manage the transition off of our dependence on fossil fuels. That is going to take time, and in the meantime, we have to manage that transition.